the Origin System. Excerpt 6. Rhino. They made him a monster. Before he was a Warframe, before the Tenno called upon him as an instrument of their will, he was a man, a warrior, a soul torn from the remnants of a life that no longer mattered. The Orokin did not ask for volunteers. They took what they needed: flesh, bone, spirit, and reforged them into something more, something unbreakable. They called him Rhino. The experiments were endless, his body stripped of its weakness, his mind broken and reshaped. Layer by layer, the infestation crept through his veins, fusing with steel, molding him into something beyond human. He could not scream. The flesh that once belonged to him was gone, twisted into a war machine, a grotesque fusion of organic matter and impossible resilience. His skin flowed like liquid metal, hardened under the cruel hands of the Orokin's biosmiths. And yet, the echoes of his past remained, buried deep beneath the armor, beneath the rage. The memories of who he was, who he had been, flashed like ghosts through his fractured consciousness. A name, a face, a life stolen, rewritten by those who saw him as nothing more than a weapon. Then came the first battle. The sentients had arrived in waves, their cold and calculating minds probing for weaknesses. The Orokin unleashed their abomination upon them, and the battlefield trembled beneath his steps. He did not feel pain, he did not falter, he did not stop. The Orokin rejoiced, watching as Rhino tore through the enemy lines with unstoppable force. Bullets ricocheted off his iron skin, blades shattered upon his frame. He was not a soldier. He was an extinction event, a living catastrophe bound to their will. But deep within, something still screamed. Rhino was no mindless beast. He knew that his rage, his destruction, was not his own. That the blood on his hands was spilled for those who had enslaved him. But there was no escape, no mercy, no way to resist the programming that kept him bound to their will. And then, the fall. The Tenno turned against their masters and the Golden Empire crumbled into dust. The chains that bound Rhino snapped, and for the first time, he was free. But what was freedom to something built for war? What was choice to something that had never been given one? The Tenno took him in, molded him into something new, a guardian, a protector. But deep in the void of his being, he would always know the truth. He was made for violence. He was made to endure. He was made to kill. The Orokin had taken his humanity, and in its place they left only Rhino, the Juggernaut, the Titan, the Beast of Unrelenting Destruction, a force that no god could control, and no man could stop. Rhino. The Restless Rampage.
Oh hey dreamers, fancy meeting you here. Welcome to another episode of Chronicles of the Origin System. We are taking a deep dive into Rhino. Now with Rhino's amazing heirloom skin coming out, I wanted to give him some special love, not only showcasing his amazing dark lore that consists of Rhino's origins, but also a detailed endgame build that will have you skull-fucking level cap disruptions and cascades with utter impunity. With that said, grab those cute little Okinas you barely play with and let's get fucking wild, Tenno.
So all you want to do is stack as much Overguard onto this Warframe as possible.
Oh yeah. So when level cap enemies shoot you, you immediately lose 6 million fucking Overguard in the blink of an eye. But why don't we look at Rhino from another approach? We don't mind taking the plunge and pumping our power strength to the max, ultimately bringing Roar to 200%. But instead of maximizing strength with the sole hopes of pushing Roar and Overguard, let's slot in Pillage over Rhino Charge for that sweet, sweet armor strip, because come on, who really uses that wussy-ass skill Rhino Charge anyways? Setting Pillage to give us 100% armor strip caused us to then do an effective 10x damage to armored enemies. Given that bit of absolutely beautiful information, HairlessPersian and I, yeah that's him, have crafted a mathematically effective Rhino build that would make even Hunk Pain cry tears of hummus. Now from two Middle Easterns to the next, we walked through deserts, invented algebra, and raised camels for this Rhino build to happen. Make sure to check out the official build write-up by none other than our homie and favorite Overframe builder, HairlessPersian. Also, if you'd like to pick our brains over builds, run some level caps, or just all in all shoot the shit, my official Discord link will be below in the description. Join at your own risk. Of overwhelming pleasure. With all that out of the way, let's dive right into abilities and synergies, crushing our way into Void Heaven. Let's take a quick look into Rhino's passive ability. Emit a shockwave dealing 100 damage after landing from a great height. This one really speaks for itself. Big Chonkers hits ground and ground goes fucking boom. No, seriously, that's literally what it is. Pillage. Oh, you got shields and armor? Let's strip them, baby. Pillage a percentage of shields and armor of nearby enemies to replenish our own shields and overshields. Armor stripping is by far the strongest way to increase damage against any enemy with even an ounce of armor. Max armor from enemies caps out at 90% damage reduction. When stripping the armor from those enemies, we can see an effective gain to our damage by up to 10x. Too many preach parasitic armor, nourish, or warcry. But without an effective armor strip, let's be honest here, we're not hitting for shit. Pillage bypasses almost all of these issues and adds another layer of defense. Since this build hits over 400 plus power strength, we can single cast Pillage and remove all the armor or shields from any nearby enemy. And keep in mind, if you're a chronic ability spammer, then having the first cast Pillage might not suit your playstyle. For me personally, I tend to recall Pillage early to reel it back in before stripping all the enemies in a local area. Nonetheless, the shield gating is not the focus for a Rhino. The real beauty shows itself in the double gating effect of Overguard gating plus shield gating. Now, having a double gate allows you to mitigate the skill issue of keeping a watchful eye on your health bar. If you hear the Overguard break, you then have enough time before you hear the shield break. Even then, you have an additional 2 seconds of the shield gate to cast Iron Skin. And if you're not hitting Iron Skin by then, I don't really know what to tell you. Ability 2, Iron Skin. Rhino hardens his skin, insulating himself from all damage. Iron Skin is the most iconic of Rhino's abilities. It offers the player an absolute fuck ton of Overguard when used at the right moment. You have 30 enemies trying to split you inside out with the purest of back shots? Iron Skin. Any moment with a high degree of damage absorption calls for Iron Skin. Blitz Eximus are among some of the best enemies to stack Overguard. They send shocking blast waves towards you, and Rhino can take advantage of that blast wave to stack tens of millions of Overguard. With the addition of Arcane Truculence, the Overguard gain will almost always proc a radius 10x viral proc, giving us a 4.25x damage increase to the health of enemies. So here's the math. We look at pre-strength Overguard, 1200 plus 2.50 times total armor. Our modded Overguard equals pre-strength Overguard times 1 plus ability strength modifiers. Our total Overguard equals the modded Overguard plus absorbed damage. So in practice, our pre-strength Overguard is 1200 plus 2.50 times 1640. That equals 5300. So our modded Overguard equals 5300 times 4.18 equals 22,154. Our total Overguard equals 22,154 plus absorbed damage. So even at 418% power strength and 1640 armor, we only end up with 22,154 Overguard before absorbed damage is added. All this to say that the true Overguard comes from the damage that enemies put into Rhino, not from how much we can stack our armor or strength. When these builders scream at you to run high armor like with parasitic armor, they're selling you snake oil. Then they record themselves going to level cap and getting hit by some rabies-infested scythe-wielding fucking bunny-hopping mass murderer Thrax, just to attribute it to some shitty build that requires all the armor mods. So build your Rhino for utility, get out there and get your ass stomped in. On purpose. And let me tell you, this build loves a good old-fashioned smiley. Now onto our augment synergies. Iron Shrapnel is an augment for Iron Skin that converts the Overguard gained into a fucking bomb vest. No pun intended. The augment allows all of Rhino's remaining Overguard to be recasted at no energy cost and explodes in an 8-meter radius for all the damage that accumulated from Iron Skin as puncture damage, which is moddable by range and strength. This augment synergizes with Roar, as Roar will buff the overall damage of our abilities and applies to Iron Shrapnel as well. But keep in mind that one must be very close to enemies in order to feel the full effects of Iron Shrapnel. The damage falloff goes all the way down to 1 damage. This damage stacking is not the only useful part of Iron Skin. Iron Skin traditionally cannot be recasted as an ability, but with the augment, this is now possible. Ability 3, Roar. Grants all nearby Warframes increased damage for a short duration. As if 30 seconds isn't a long fucking time when it comes to dealing with a fucking marathon sprinting Demolist. It's our objective to pile drive its bitch ass into absolute oblivion. Enter Roar damage amplification. Roar is Rhino's subsumable ability, and it's rightfully so one of, if not the most viable and useful helmet abilities in the game. Because we are all so damn lazy and don't use faction mods. This ability covers just that. It is the faction ability. So when it comes to damage, Roar will provide a multiplicative buff to your damage, not only to your weapons, but to all of your abilities as well. This also goes for the Helminth version, albeit at a reduced percentage. Just like faction mods, Roar provides a double dip effect on status damage. This means that the damage from the shot of a gun will be buffed by Roar, and the proc of damage over time, such as heat, toxin, slash, electricity, and gas, is then also multiplied by the effects a second time. Keep in mind that this ability is moddable by duration, range, and strength. Ability 4, Rhino Stomp. Rhino stomps with force sufficient to disrupt time, tumbling enemies around him in stasis. For the low cost of 100 energy, you too can crowd control on the lowest base energy Warframe in the game. Add Blind Rage and now it's 155 energy. Fucking stupendous. No, jokes aside, Rhino Stomp is the epitome of crowd control. It forces enemies into the air, slows them, and applies that debuff in a radial 22 meter range for a base of 8 seconds. The slow is set to 97.5%, so enemies are moving at 1/40th the speed. The best part is that Rhino Stomp applies that slow effect to disruption targets as well, just like how Loki's damage decoy applies to them. The Rhino Stomp augment, Reinforcing Stomp, allows for Stomp to replenish a percentage of the maximum Overguard that was gained from Iron Skin. When the level of enemies goes beyond level 9000, even Vegeta himself would be shitting bricks at the sight of Rhino also gaining a Kaioken times 10. Because enemy damage scales as you are running for level cap, the amount of Overguard gained also scales. Reinforcing Stomp restores an unmoddable 4% of lost Overguard per enemy. This may seem small, but when a gang of butchers comes running at you screaming that Rhino is a B-tier Warframe, put your foot down, show those Ninja's followers whose build you're running. That 100k Overguard Rhino charge build won't mean shit when a Blast Xmas can give us 13 million at the snap of a finger. Now with our abilities and synergies covered, let's touch upon our Archon Shards. The what and why to pushing the frame over the limit. Rhino is enhanced with 5 Crimson Tau-forged Archon Shards, each amplifying his raw strength by 15%, stacking to a staggering 75% ability strength. This pushes Roar to an overwhelming 200% strength, massively boosting all outgoing damage. Meanwhile, Pillage reaches full 100% armor strip, turning even the toughest enemies into nothing more than dust beneath his unstoppable rage. Yes, we are going to reference it. Conan the fucking Barbarian type shit. Now that we've gone over the nitty-gritty details of Rhino's abilities, let's look at our playstyle overview. Step 1. Roar, the engine of destruction. Keep Roar active at all times. The more ability strength you stack, the deadlier your warpath becomes. With Molt-augmented Madurai Void Sling, growing power, and a fully optimized build, we push Roar past 200%, turning every weapon and ability into an instrument of motherfucking annihilation. Step 2. Iron Skin, Overguard Overload. Forget personal armor. The real power comes from Overguard stacking. When surrounded by Xmas units like Jade and Blitz Xmas, use Iron Skin to soak up incoming fire and convert it into an impenetrable shield. The more they hit you, the stronger you become, until you're an unstoppable juggernaut marching through the battlefield. Step 3. The Wombo Combo, Iron Skin, Pillage, Rhino Stomp. When Overguard and shield gating are in full effect, activate Iron Skin, then immediately proc Pillage. This does 2 things. Instantly stacking Overguard from absorbed damage and stripping enemy armor to 0, making them easy prey. With Overguard stacked, unleash Rhino Stomp to lock down every enemy in range, regenerating any Overguard lost from residual fire. At the same time, Arcane Truculence detonates a 10x viral stack, crippling everything around you. It's one of the most devastating ability chains in the entire game, an unstoppable cascade of CC, armor strip, and raw damage amplification. Step 4. Iron Shrapnel, the walking frag grenade. Once you've absorbed enough damage, it's time to pull the pin. Iron Shrapnel turns your Overguard into a detonating shockwave, instantly vaporizing anything unlucky enough to be standing nearby. It's Rhino's ultimate flex, an unstoppable war machine laughing in the face of death before blowing everything to hell. Step right up and watch your bodies disconnect from your ankles as this walking frag grenade decides to pull the pin. Those famed Grenier butchers? Yeah, they never fucking saw it coming. Now let's take a look at our arsenal. As always, let's start with primary weapons. Now I know I sound like a broken record at this point, but I can't stress enough that the Burston is by far in the top echelon of primary weapons. The Incarnate form spawns in with more ammo than the Tenora, so there's that. It also scales so incredibly well for damage. We don't notice that the enemies at level 9,999 were any different than the ones we were killing when the mission started. It's reliable, hits like a fucking napalm ballistic blow dart, and brings the difficulty scaling down to beginner. Combining with its second evolution, Fortress Salvo, Rhino can synergize with health conversion to add an extra plus 2 meters of punch through. Keep in mind that the punch through does not apply to Incarnate, as the Incarnate is explosive on impact. Regardless, the Burston is by far the most powerful of the rifle Incarnates and should be on everyone's radar. The Stahlta. This is probably the first time you're hearing about the Stahlta, assuming you've never seen a Moog video. This weapon has both multiplicative gun CO with galvanized aptitude and primary merciless, and multiplicative crit with primary acuity and galvanized scope. This means that the Stahlta can reach well into the billions of damage, and takes no backseat when paired with Rhino. The alternate fire and the main fire both benefit from these awesome scaling stats, and if you talk nicely to it, it will also take your mom to the movies on a Friday night, so you can play Halo with the boys. The Exergis. Another one of the great gun CO multiplicative weapons. The Exergis has a base of 1 magazine, but can be scaled to 3 or 4 depending on how you mod it. This weapon packs a punch, similar to the Phalarx. Here's the math. 60% efficiency equals 40% ammo drain. 1 over 40% ammo drain equals 2.5x the average ammo per magazine. 2.5 times 3 equals 7.5 shots per magazine. That's fucking 7.5 shots in the damn Exergis. What in the absolute fuck? Combine those 7.5 shots per magazine with Rhino's plus 200% roar, and we're now at 3x the damage of this gun on top of the original multiplicative numbers.
Lord have mercy, I'm about to bust.
The Kuva Sobek. The Kuva Sobek and its augments Acid Shells, Clip Delegation, and Shattered Justice. Yeah, there's 3. Paired with Roar and a Bane mod are about as brutal a pairing as that time your mom chaperoned your first date to the movies. Acid Shells deals corrosive damage and 45% of health damage as cinematic damage in an on-death detonation effect when you kill an enemy, exploding in a local 15-meter radius. Out of all the scaling damage augments, Acid Shells has the highest range out of them all. So aside from pairing the Sobek with the Blighted Bussy Saren or the Flappy Fuckbird Zephyr, we can also combine it with any frame that runs Roar. If we can scale Roar and a Bane mod additively to above 122%, then we can insta-kill enemies that are surrounding the Acid Shell targets. Keep in mind that Armor Strip is necessary for this to take place, but Rhino has the original Roar, so that damage when paired with Pillage will not disappoint. Bubonico. This is the arm cannon of the Gooners. Enough said. Secondary weapons. The Epitaph Prime. The Epitaph went from a hybrid crit status weapon to a pure primer to now the final form, Acuity Epitaph. With the introduction to the pistol Acuity mod, the Epitaph functions with multiplicative critical chance, similar to the Stahlta and the Tenet Plinks. This means that the critical chance with crosshairs and Acuity will bring us well into the triple crit zone. Not to mention the multiplicative gun CO that also sits on this weapon. It's the sidearm Stahlta, and if you've been busy tap-shotting it to prime enemies, well, you're missing out on half of what this thing is capable of. Keep in mind that slotting in pistol Acuity does not stop us from still taking utter advantage of the amazing cold procs and high status chance of the quick radial shots, but pair that with Hemorrhage to guarantee slash procs from our forced impact procs on charge shots, and we now have a heavenly shredder that's sole goal is to one-shot all your enemies to absolute fucking smithereens. We are void-touched orphan psychopaths anyways. We like that. Melee weapons. The Praedos. Not only a great stat stick for movement speed and parkour velocity, the Praedos can be used to nuke rooms too. Now keep in mind that this Rhino build is not totally geared towards melee, so you won't want to actually focus completely on it without changing a few of the aspects like Archon Shards or whatnot, but keep in mind that you can still use them whenever you want, and you're going to have a great time doing it. Now let's talk about companions. I could go into a bunch of awesome and different synergies, but there's only one I truly want to showcase because of the sheer fucking ridiculousness that is this companion. The best boy. Our Mecha Hound of mass destruction. Loyal, lethal, and an absolute powerhouse. Our Mecha Hound isn't just a companion, it's a walking elemental apocalypse. Equipped with Momentous Bond, Contagious Bond, Reinforced and Vicious Bond, and Prime Pack Leader, this beast is built to survive, spread status, and delete anything in its fucking path. Its Akaten weapon is modded for viral, radiation, magnetic, and heat, ensuring maximum elemental spread with every attack, but that's just the beginning. Synergized Prospectus adds electric procs, bringing our total spreadable elements to 7. Pair this in conjunction with our status spreading mods, and enemy deaths chain massive status explosions, spreading armor shredding, health melting effects across entire waves. Level cap enemies don't stand a fucking chance. One kill triggers a cascade of elemental destruction, turning every battlefield into a graveyard. This isn't just a good boy, this is the best boy, the apex predator of the Origin system. And that, dreamers, is the brutal legacy of Rhino, the Beast of Unrelenting Destruction, a warframe forged not by Tenno, but by the cruel hands of the Orokin, turned into a walking fortress of power, rage, and devastation. With the Rhino Heirloom skin now released, it's the perfect time to embrace the unstoppable force that is Rhino. Whether you're charging into battle or obliterating enemies with raw strength, there's no better way to honor his brutal origins than with this new, legendary design. If you want to talk builds, lore, or just connect with fellow Tenno, my Discord link is in the description. Anyone's welcome to join. And if you're enjoying the Chronicles of the Origin system, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a deep dive into Warframe's most powerful legends. This has been another episode of Chronicles of the Origin system. I'm the Demon Prince, and I'll see you in the Void, Dreamers.